Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and welcome to issue number 7 of The Division Weekly. This is our final issue before the launch of The Division come March 8th. We're definitely going to be talking a little bit more about actual launch day release plans towards the end of this video. So let's go ahead and kick things off, as we always do, with our fan art focus. Today we got a piece from Shervon. He's from the United States over on DeviantArt. Please, guys, go ahead. Hit the link down in the description below to see more from this guy. He's definitely somebody who's continuing the theme that I set last week, trying to push away from the concept art into more of the hand-painted style stuff. This is very much a digital hand-styled painting of the Cleaners. One that I think does an extremely amazing job of capturing, I don't know, a bit of like fear, horror, sort of terror behind their pursuit. I especially like what he did with the eyes of their gas masks, which are completely blacked out. And that seems to be a huge focus in this piece, especially with a lot of the foreground lighting effects going on, coming up from what is most likely flames, considering it's the Cleaners. It really helps darken their eyes even more, and it makes them seem almost like haunted spirits, and less like dudes in a bunch of fire and gas mask equipment. So, ultra creepy, just does a great job of nailing the Cleaner vibe. And as someone who is a huge fan of them as a faction, this was easily one of my favorite pieces that I've stumbled across in a very long time. And I imagine that, you know, this is kind of how the civilians, the less well-armed people surviving in New York City see the Cleaners. They see them as a genuine horror. You know, a very, very great example of how should I say this, of fear tactics, I guess would be the best way to put it. It's definitely something the Cleaners are carrying, you know, subsequently by having all of this gear on that they use to prevent themselves from inhaling smoke and fire and all of that goodness. So, awesome piece from Shervon. As I said, guys, please go ahead and hit the link down in the description below. Check out some more awesome art from this guy. He's done Destiny, a lot of other games. Really, really great stuff. Cannot recommend it enough. So let's move forward with the discussion data. As I said, launch day is nearly upon us, just over a week away. This will be the last episode before the launch of The Division, but it will not be the last episode of the show. As I said, I'm going to continue pushing on with The Division Weekly well past the launch of the game. It's going to be even more involved with you guys. I'm looking to do some community challenge stuff. There's going to be a lot of discussion topics, you know, based around our first impressions, my first impressions of the game. We'll be talking about weapons and gear. It'll just be a lot of awesome stuff happening on the show. We'll be highlighting Easter eggs, and it'll just be awesome. Like, it's going to be a great place to come to get your fix of The Division when you're not actually at home playing the game. So I hope you guys will continue to watch well after the launch of The Division. So let's actually move forward with the discussion data. Let's talk about microtransactions, right? This is a pretty hot topic at this point because people have been trying to get clarification left and right as to whether or not The Division will contain some form of microtransactions. Now, the game will include microtransactions. The issue at hand is that every time Ubisoft has talked to like Eurogamer or someone about it, they've been playing the semantics card. They don't want to call what they're calling DLC microtransactions because they know how poorly people view microtransactions alongside the release of a full-price AAA game. Which, you know, they really shouldn't be that worried. It's all about how you deliver said microtransactions, and if they do as well as they did with Rainbow Six Siege, then I don't think they'll have a concern, because Siege is a game that's doing phenomenally. It's doing really well, and its microtransactions are doing well because they're purely cosmetic. Now, they have said straightforward that they only plan on selling vanity items, but the reason that they say it's DLC and not microtransactions is just they'll be selling it in this case, if you're playing on Xbox One, they'll be selling it in the Microsoft Store. They'll be selling it on PlayStation Network or on Steam. They'll be selling it alongside of copies of The Division rather than as an in-game component. So like in Rainbow Six Siege, you can actually buy the weapon skins in-game, but you can also buy packs outside. It looks like they just plan on selling stuff outside. You know, there's games that have done outfit sales before. It wouldn't be the first time. So it'll be interesting to see how they price things and how they go about doing things. I mean, I imagine they're going to be more unique outfits. Some people will totally be into them. I'm, like, content with the stuff that I end up finding in the world. You know, they've already actually announced 3 different outfits for the pre-order bonuses. So it's probably going to be stuff more like that. Things that are considered more unique or more, you know, cool looking. But the plain and simple fact is you're still going to be able to find a slew of scarves, hats, and all of those different cosmetic clothing items just from playing the game. So again, a big focus on making sure that's a completely optional purchase. That's definitely one of the most intelligent ways to avoid getting your game smashed to bits in terms of microtransactions. But at the end of the day, they essentially are microtransactions. It's a transaction and they're micro. But I know that the word microtransaction, much like the term MMO, has become very jaded and convoluted over the years, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But just know that there's going to be cosmetic items that you can buy for the game as DLC. Call them microtransactions, call them DLC, just know they're going to exist. And I, for one, am okay with this. You know, if this is going to help fuel more free content mixed in with what's going on with the season pass, that's what I'd like to see. I'd be more happy had they been able to push for a microtransaction system like Siege did and then push out all free content. That's something that Halo 5 and Rainbow Six Siege have done very well, is that they've included microtransactions which have helped fuel free content, like free actual content. All of Halo 5's maps and content modes, all this stuff's free. All of Rainbow Six Siege's maps and operators are free because of the way they've done their microtransaction systems. Very, very intelligent. Sadly, the Division is still going with the season pass, and what's funny is, in like the research that I've done and the feedback that I've seen from a lot of you guys, especially when I recently talked about Fallout 4 season passes, that people are okay with season passes. They're okay with being like, you know, nickeled and dimed and essentially, you know, forced to buy a larger pack of content that they don't even know what's in it just to save money. Because the idea is that they're saving money, for some reason people are more okay with that. For me, it's like, it doesn't float my boat either way. Like, I'd rather just be able to buy this DLC individually, and why should I pay more than someone who decided to roll the dice and buy it all at once? I've never been for season passes, and neither should you. I'm more for the idea of them just selling optional cosmetic items than a season pass, because yeah, at the end of the day, those optional items, they benefit everyone. Like, the people who buy them, they get what they want, and if you're on the sidelines, you usually end up getting free DLC because of those cosmetic items and the funding they provided the game, at least in most instances. So everybody's going to have their own thoughts and opinions on that, but just know that there essentially will be microtransactions. So I want to talk a little bit about some leaked information, because a copy of the game seemed to have released early over in the East. But what we have been able to confirm from this, actual images of the PlayStation 4 copy of the game, like in its case and everything, actually leaked onto the web. If you guys are interested in checking out that article, I will have it linked down in the description below with all the other sources. But what it has confirmed is that if you're playing on PlayStation 4, 40 gigabyte install. Now you can imagine that on the Xbox One and the PC, it will probably be relatively close. The PC will probably have a slightly larger file just because of larger texture support, hopefully. But I would clear up anywhere from 40, if you want to be really safe, to 60 gigs of space on any of your given playable platforms to make sure you're ready to go once you can preload and lock and load this thing. On top of that, we did get final confirmation, it seems, that the Dark Zone will contain 24 players. This seemed to be the case in the beta, as well as the closed beta and the closed alpha, but this actual game case is now 100% confirming that. So let's move forward. IGN has been doing a series called IGN First for over a year now, I believe it's been since they've started it. It's hit or miss. Sometimes they've got really great coverage with a lot of awesome commentary from the devs and discussion. Other times, it's just kind of a gameplay fest. The Division's kind of been in the middle. We've had the developers doing some walkthroughs with us, talking about the games and so on and so forth. But for the most part, it's just been them showing off gameplay. In this case, just recently, we saw a level 27 agent mission that was ran on hard mode that had multiple bosses in one mission played by one of the developers. So we got to see some higher level gear, some higher level combat on the harder difficulty solo. Now, I will admit, it still didn't look that challenging, especially considering the developer, obviously a bit rusty because he's probably been grinding away 70-hour work weeks for the last 2 years to get this game finished. You know, was making mistakes and he wasn't really being punished that severely. I'm hoping that this challenge mode, right, a lot of you guys actually pointed this out to me last week, that's something that Ubisoft has confirmed. There is a third, more difficult mode, essentially like a challenge difficulty. I'm really hoping that is sort of going to be the go-to mode for those of us who play in a group. Because when you see some of this high-level gameplay, right, you know, there's not as much bullet sponge as you would expect. It seems like things start to scale well, and enemies do die severely quickly, which is what a lot of people actually wanted, right? People wanted like this sort of middle ground, but I think the middle ground is dangerous. I think it's a dangerous area to go. Like, if you go full bullet sponge, as people call it, like in Destiny, then you have, like, long, drawn-out combat situations that really force the player to constantly rely on all of their equipment, all of their gadgets, all their tech, and if they're working with other players, you know, to cooperate with the players to mix and match their gadgets and tech. And if you go, like, more of, you know, a heavy, you know, short time to kill, something like Rainbow Six Siege, then it's a matter of the fact that you could be dropped at any given time, so you have to be very careful, very methodical. But to go in between just seems odd. It seems weird, because what it does to me is, like, your character has a reasonable amount of health, things are dying semi-quickly, and then, like, you know, I feel like the challenge starts to drop off a little bit. The difficulty starts to drop off. So this was just one mission. It was the developer playing it. You know, he was pretty well kitted out. I'm just hoping that that challenge mode is going to be that mode that makes things one up. Like, you know, there's a lot of people who don't want the bullet sponging, but I was actually looking forward to that. That's the kind of game that I expected the Division to be. So hopefully, if they did try and find some middle ground, it holds up well once we get our hands on the full game. But if you guys want to check out that gameplay for yourself, if you haven't seen it, I will also have a link to that down in the description below. So let's start to close things out here, guys. I want to talk about launch day, minute release plans, and also about staying healthy during extended play sessions, because this is something, no doubt, that a lot of you are probably going to be doing at some point during the launch week for the Division. Whether it's the day of the midnight release or that weekend because you finally got time off work, you're probably going to sit down and pour a huge amount of time in the Division in one or multiple extended play sessions. Now, a while back, I actually right before Fallout 4, I did a video that really talked about how to very simply, not talking about going out and spending money and all this crazy stuff, how to very simply stay healthy during these extended play sessions, and in many ways to be able to play for longer than someone who would turn to caffeine and you know, I would say cheats, essentially cheat codes, to try and stay up longer. Because at the end of the day, you end up burning out quicker with those things. You don't feel as great during those times because you're on a caffeine high and your body doesn't really like it. So I'm going to have this video right now. Please, guys, go click on it. Hit the annotation there. Go watch it. Absorb as much as you can from it. Don't think of it as I'm saying to do all of these things. Think of it as an outline, a guideline to what you can do to make sure that your extended play session, your midnight release launch day, is a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit healthier. Really, I strongly recommend giving it a go. Checking that video out. You'd be shocked. I know for me, midnight release, it looks like I'm probably going to be playing solo that night, which is okay, because that means I can sit down, I can clear my mind out, and I can focus on really playing a huge chunk of the game in terms of the missions and so on and so forth. And then I can come back to you guys, hopefully Tuesday night, with a like 10 or 14 hour first impression of the game. At that point, for me, it's usually like the first 3 hours where I say if a game hasn't, you know, done what it needs to do for me, then it's out of here. So I'm going to push well past that. So a lot of you guys are sitting on the fence, you're not really sure. You can come, you can watch that video Tuesday, and you can find out whether or not, or you can at least get some information, some personal opinions from me that may help you make your final decision on whether or not the Division is something that you want to pick up. Because at the 14-hour mark, yeah, you're going to have a lot to say about the game, and it should definitely be a good benchmark for whether or not it's going to be able to hold up for a lot of you guys out there looking to play it. So that's my personal plan. I'm going to be loading up on my water, getting some tea, as well as some fruit. I like to pre-slice some fruit. Fruit is a great snack, super clean, doesn't leave your fingers all greasy and disgusting, and it leaves your stomach nice and comfy, unlike greasy, disgusting food or caffeine, which will leave your stomach gurgling and burbling. It's the worst possible thing. Now, usually when I play a game, midnight release, I'll play for like 4 or 5 hours, and then I'll go to bed, so I can still put in like 5 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep, wake up at 11 or, you know, 10, 11 or noon, and then still have a relatively normal day. Because the last thing you want to do is like crush the rest of your day, especially if you actually have a lot of work to do like me, or if you actually work in the daytime at some point. You know, you can still put in playtime at midnight, and you can still get a decent amount of sleep, or actually a solid amount of sleep, and then wake up and have a fresh day and, you know, kind of repeat that cycle. For me, I've only managed to get one day off. That's Tuesday, so I'll be back to work the next couple days, and I want to make sure I can wake up early on Wednesday to produce more content for the game. So that's a big part of my thought process. That's why I push for a healthier play session cycle, and I would definitely recommend it for you guys as well. But really, let's get away from the whole healthy and me trying to tell you what to do. Let's just talk about your midnight release plans. Like, what are you guys going to be doing? Are you going to a friend's house? You got buddies who are going to be online you're getting ready to sit down and play with? Are you going to a local game store to pick it up midnight? Did you grab it digitally? You know, what are you doing? How are you, participating in the Division's launch day? If it's not at midnight, how do you plan on doing it the next day? You're going to get out of work and go grab the game again? Are you playing with a group of friends? What do you guys plan on doing first? You already kind of have a set strategy for chewing through a certain amount of the cooperative stuff before heading in the dark zone. Are you going to head into the dark zone as soon as possible? Let me know. Share your thoughts, your stories, your plans down in the description below. I want to thank you guys very much. This is issue number freaking 7. To think it was over a month ago that I started doing this. The Division is right around the corner at this point. The show is done insanely well. It's cool because even when the title itself doesn't contain something that is click-worthy, essentially, like a really hot topic, the show does ridiculously well. Last week's episode was a great idea of that, right? It's an episode that really doesn't feature a lot of, high-level, high-warranted news. Like, it's not really sought after. The discussion pieces in that. So it ended up right now sitting at about 500 to 600 views, but it has a stupid amount of comments and viewer interaction. So there's a lot of likes. There's like 60 plus likes, a lot of comments from you guys. And I always push for that density in my content, right? Like, it's great to have 3,000, 5,000, and some of the, videos that I've had go relatively large, like 50,000 on some of my Fallout videos. But what I'd like to see is when the viewer interaction is high, when that ratio is really high. That means that there was a decent amount of views, a lot of views, but the viewer interaction almost matches that. So it didn't seem like it was just a lot of people clicking on it. It was a lot of people clicking on it and then getting involved. And that's how this entire series has been, and that's awesome. It's all thanks to you guys who have been watching. I want to give a big shout out to a Lone Wolf for fueling the soundtrack for the Division Weekly each and every week. If you guys haven't checked him out, his stuff is always linked down in the description below. Please go give him a go. Some wonderful music that I think fits the theme of the Division so incredibly well. If you guys have any other thoughts for me regarding your Midnight Reads plans, regarding the show itself, any feedback, anything you'd like to talk about regarding the Division, this is the final episode to do that. Next time I talk to you guys, we will all be playing the Division. It will be in our hands at last. I'll see you. Well, actually, I won't see you just in the next one. I hope to see you roaming those frozen, post-disease-filled wastes that we will be calling New York City.